right before a man meets the woman who is truly aligned for him. He meets the one who almost destroys him, and most men don't understand why. They think it's bad luck, but it's actually the final stage of his transformation. There is a pattern that nearly every man on the path of growth experiences, a moment where he encounters a woman who feels intense, magnetic, almost destined, yet at the same time, destabilizing, confusing, and emotionally demanding, a connection that pulls him in deeply while simultaneously exposing every weakness he has not yet resolved. She is not calm, she is not grounded, she is not stable, and yet something about her feels familiar, almost like she was meant to enter his life, and in a way, she was. And if you've ever met someone who awakened something in you, but also brought chaos into your life, then you've already experienced this phase. Because what you encountered is not random, it is exactly what Carl Jung described through individuation, the process where the unconscious is brought into awareness, where the parts of you that are still unresolved are reflected back through your relationships, forcing you to confront what you have not yet integrated. This woman is not a mistake. She is a mirror. She is the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. In ancient myths, before the king meets the queen, he meets the test, the temptation, the challenge that reveals whether he is ready not for love, but for responsibility, for leadership, for self-mastery. And this is where most men misunderstand everything. They think they met the wrong woman, but in reality, they met the necessary one. Because this is not about her. This is about what she revealed in you. Attraction is not random. It is patterned. It is conditioned. It is shaped by your past, by your nervous system, by your emotional history, and before your transformation, you were still carrying the imprint of your childhood, your attachment patterns, your unmet needs, your desire for validation, your fear of abandonment. So you were drawn not to alignment, but to familiarity, not to peace, but to intensity, not to stability, but to unpredictability. She felt right because she matched the version of you that was ready to end. And this is where everything flips. Because the moment you change, the woman you are attracted to changes too. She triggered everything you tried to avoid, your fears, your insecurities, your reactions, your emotional patterns, and this is why the connection felt overwhelming, because it was not just about the present, it was connected to your past. Jung taught that what remains unconscious will control your life, and this is exactly what was happening. She was not creating your reactions, she was revealing them. She was not breaking you. She was exposing what needed to be seen. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Everything about that connection was designed to push you beyond your current identity. The intensity, the confusion, the emotional highs and lows, all of it served a purpose, to destabilize the old structure so something stronger could be built. You were not in a relationship, you were in a transformation, and transformation is not comfortable. It breaks patterns, it exposes illusions, it forces decisions that the old version of you would avoid. And this is the moment most men fail. They try to hold on to what is meant to end. The real test was never the connection itself. It was your ability to leave it, to recognize that something can feel intense and still not be right, to understand that chemistry is not compatibility, that emotional pull is not alignment. Walking away was not loss. It was discernment. It was the moment you chose yourself over your patterns. The aligned woman does not come into chaos. She does not enter instability. She meets a man who is already grounded, already clear, already centered in himself. And this is why she could not come before this experience, because you had not yet become that man. This experience shaped you into him. Because there is a moment after the storm passes, a quiet moment that most men don't talk about, where everything begins to make sense, not emotionally at first, but logically, almost like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together, where you begin to see the relationship not through attachment, but through clarity. And in that clarity, something shifts. You stop asking why it ended, and you start understanding why it couldn't continue. You begin to see how your standards were not yet fully formed, how your boundaries were still negotiable, how your sense of self was still influenced by the need to be chosen, to be validated, to be accepted. And this is not judgment. This is awareness. Because without awareness, nothing changes. And this is where the real separation happens, not between you and her, but between you and the man you used to be. Because once you see clearly, you cannot unknow it. Once you feel the difference between chaos and peace, you cannot go back to confusion without resistance. Once your nervous system experiences stability, it begins to reject what once felt normal. And this is where many men get pulled back, not because the connection was right, but because the familiar is powerful. Familiar chaos feels like home to the unhealed mind. Familiar instability feels like passion. Familiar unpredictability feels like excitement. And without awareness, a man will mistake emotional intensity for connection. But you didn't. You paused, you observed, you felt the dissonance. And eventually, you chose differently. And that choice is everything. Because in that moment, you didn't just walk away from her. You walked away from a pattern that could have repeated for years. You broke a cycle that many men never even recognize, let alone escape. And that is not a small thing. That is evolution. This is where the man separates himself from the crowd, because most men will re-enter the same dynamic with a different woman, believing they've moved on, when in reality they've only changed the face, not the pattern. But you changed the pattern. And once the pattern changes, everything changes. The type of woman you notice, the type of energy you allow, the type of conversations you engage in, the type of behavior you tolerate, the type of connection you desire, and most importantly, the type of man you are. Because this is the real transformation, not just external, internal, permanent. And this is why the woman before the one is so important. Because without her, you would not have become the man capable of recognizing the right one when she arrives. And there is one more layer to this that most men only understand much later. That the pain you felt was not just about losing her. It was about losing the illusion that she was the answer. Because as long as a man believes that someone else will complete him, stabilize him, or give him what he has not yet built within himself, he remains dependent on something outside of his control. And this is where suffering comes from. But this experience changed that. You no longer look for someone to fix your inner world. You build it. You no longer seek emotional security from another person. You create it. You no longer chase connection from a place of lack. You choose it from a place of stability. And this is the shift that redefines everything. Because now, when the right woman enters your life, you will not approach her from need, from fear, or from attachment, but from presence, from clarity, from self-respect. And that changes the entire dynamic. And this is the truth most men only understand after it's over. She was never meant to stay. She came to awaken you, to break the illusion, to expose the patterns, to force your growth. And once that was complete, her role ended. You didn't lose her. You outgrew the version of you that needed her. And the man who walks forward now is not the same man who met her. He is more aware, more grounded, more selective, and finally ready for something real. Chop wood, carry water, and let's keep the fire burning.